Hi, my name is Joslyn. Thanks for watching. This whole study began when I was working as a research assistant during my doctoral program, and we were doing a study on fourth-stage cancer patients. And as I was reviewing these patient transcripts, I noticed that some patients had a relationship with God. And social network analysis doesn't really deal with these types of relationships. I decided that it would be useful to have more of a unifying concept of what a relationship is. There isn't really much of a definition of what a relationship is in sociology. So that's how this whole thing got started. And through my research, I discussed this concept of disjointed fluidity, which is that relationships are both disjointed and fluid at the same time. They're disjointed in that they sort of consist of these remembered and imagined events and also cognitive outputs resulting from those events, which I call RICOs. So if we imagine a dyad with two people connected by a line and we zoom in on that line, what we'll see is a bunch of RICOs floating around. The way that people remember somebody, the way that they imagine somebody, and also the impressions that they get of them and the analyses that they do, opinions that they form, and different meanings that are constructed based on those fundamental remembered and imagined events. So these are basically the constituents of a relationship. But at the same time, relationships are also fluid, and that's because time is a very important factor here. Relationships look and feel like a fluid reality. Just because your spouse isn't in the room with you at a given time doesn't mean that you don't have a relationship with them. People build meanings and develop broader constructs based on these fundamental components. So relationships are disjointed and fluid, and they have cognitive and temporal elements that define them. I explored the issue of absence and loss specifically. What happens? How is fluidity maintained during periods of absence and loss? And so my qualitative research consisted of hour-long interviews with faculty members at a Southwest university and also participant observations with an agricultural research team in the Northeast. And what I found was that there are both internal and external mechanisms of continuity. People evoke these internal types of mechanisms to maintain relationships during periods of absence and loss. So they might reflect on a relationship and remember the past, or they might transition the relationship by rethinking those memories, or even deconstructing those memories by intentionally trying to forget about a person. They're trying to eradicate that relationship. Or they might extend a relationship long after the person is gone. So perhaps somebody dies, for example, then they might imagine them in a better place, or they might rethink how their existing relationship is with them. But these are also connected and affected by these external mechanisms. So people will use material objects to evoke memories, perhaps a picture of somebody sitting out, and that helps them to remember a person or remember a relationship with a person or even an affiliation. These affect all different types of relationships. Then there can be institutional and positional types of mechanisms. Maybe if you're in a certain role as a mentor, then there are certain norms that you have to follow, or there are certain expectations of you, and this affects your relationship with other people. And then there are also interactional and discursive types of mechanisms. An easy example would be when you first meet somebody, you say, "Hi, how are you?" And the person talks about their life and how they've been doing, and they sort of fill in those gaps of absence when you weren't there, and that helps to maintain or build your relationship. Now, it's also possible to model these things, and I go into this in more depth in my book. And I use pixels and flows to model RICOs and time, which helps to explain relational processes. For example, you could pass on a memory to somebody else and effectively bestow a relationship indirectly with a different person if you share a memory. And that is what is depicted in this picture here. So thank you very much. And if you ever have any questions about disjointed fluidity, please feel free to contact me. And thanks for listening.